Oh, you're a watch vlogger? Well, dude, I'm challenging you to step up your game. This is Act My Age, lessons from a guy who's old enough to know better. I'm Brother Russ, and today I want to talk to the folks in the watch vlogging community. This is not a hate video. Please don't think that I'm just going to rant and rave. That's not it. But it is a challenge. It's a challenge to you folks because I see something. You know, I am old enough to remember when there was no such thing as a quartz watch. I remember that. I remember getting a Swiss made timepiece as a young boy, given to me by my folks. It must have cost them a ridiculous amount of money at the time. And I remember it was a special thing. I never really appreciated it as much as I should have, perhaps, but I knew it was special, important. It was expensive. And then the quartz watch came along, and it was astounding. Literally anyone could afford a watch. Because up until then, you had two choices. Two choices for finding out the time when you were in public. One was to look at the clock tower in the middle of town, and most towns had one somewhere. And the other was to look at your wristwatch. Well, if your wristwatch, back in the era of the Swiss-made mechanicals prior to quartz watches, most people couldn't afford wristwatches. That was kind of for people who had some money, not the average Joe necessarily. But with the quartz watch, suddenly everyone, any kid with $10 in his pocket could wear a quartz watch before long. It was revolutionary. So the market changed right there. And then comes this thing, the smartphone. And even before the smartphone, just the whole cell telephone, where you had a device that told time on your hip. And so suddenly a watch went from being a luxury item when I was a child, luxury but necessary, to being just a luxury item. Because it's not necessary. Everyone's got one of these for the most part. And if they don't have one of them, they can go get some cheap thing down at Walmart for $10. Watches are now straight luxury. There is no practical reason to wear a watch. You have to have other reasons. Well, what's the big reason right now? I mean, yes, in the watch community, you got people, who love watches. They're all about the horology. They're, bum, bum, bum. Okay, great. That's terrific. I'm not knocking any of that. But you are a very small slice of life on this planet. What's going on right now, of course, you all know, is the fashion watch. Oh, the Chinese-made fashion watch. And there are people out there right now, more videos than this community makes out there in the fashion industry, talking about these wonderful fashion watches. And the most appalling thing of all, quite honestly, is not the looks. I happen to like the minimal sort of looks and so forth. But you will have YouTube bloggers out there saying, oh, the quality. You cannot imagine the quality in this $200 Chinese fashion watch. Are you kidding me? You know better. I know better. But the thing is, the people out there don't know better. So who's going to tell them? Now, in the watch vlogging community, there are a number of people doing a really good job. And then there are some other ones that need to kind of step it up. But let me tell you, I was a technology evangelist for years. Still am, sort of in my own spare time. So I'm used to going out and talking to the great unwashed. The people who are not part of the group, to try to get them to understand and bring them in. A lot of what I see inside the watch vlogging community are people who are preachers, not evangelists. Preachers speak to the converted. They're speaking to the true believers, to the ones that are already following, which is good. You need to have that. But I'm telling you, you need more evangelists. You need more people who are speaking directly to the people who are buying these pieces and thinking they're getting quality. And the first thing you need to do, of course, is to understand where they're coming from. Because people who buy things like this, they don't really care about the quality too much. Let me explain that. I saw a really interesting video. If I find it, I'll try to put the link in the description. A year or so ago, of a guy who had bought one of these very popular brands. I won't even dignify the brand by saying it, but you know one of the ones I mean. Just think about it. One of the fashion watch brands, and he said the thing broke. He had like 3 watches, and like all of them broke within a year. But he was still wearing them anyway. Why? Because they completed the outfit. It makes the statement. This, when you start talking about fashion watches, you have to understand this is not a watch in the sense that you mean watch. This is a fashion accessory. This is a bangle. This is, a wrist bracelet. That's its function. It's not about intelligent horology. It's not about that. It's about the way that it looks, the image that it projects. Now, the thing that gets me is that in the realm of really decent watches, or at least half decent watches, there are a number of pieces out there that would be splendid as fashion pieces. But they're almost impossible to find. Why? Because there's 10,000 of these other watches out there, and no one's pulling them out. No one's calling them out. That would be a tremendous thing for a few of you fellas to start doing more frequently. Go straight for the barrel. Call out fashion watches made by real decent watch companies. Especially if you can hit the price point that these Chinese companies are hitting. I mean, most of these things, they're getting $100, $200 for something that's probably, this thing probably costs like about $1.87 or something like this to make, and they're getting $100, $200. I see, it took me a while, but like Timex, what is it, the Fairfield line has a few things in there that would pass as fashion watches, and they're going for under $100 on Amazon. I mean, not only are the established watchmakers making a better product, but a lot of them are cheaper than these Chinese things that are coming out of a dim sum factory or something. Come on. And by the way, if there's anyone actually from a watch manufacturer who happens to come across this video, let me ask you one question. What the hell are you doing? Holy crap, you should be eating these people's lunch right now. You've got the product. You've got the knowledge. You even can manufacture at a price point that is more than price competitive. And yet, people are selling these things and going to YouTubers, to influencers, and say, I'll give you so much if you'll promote my product. And these people who are well trusted are up there talking about, oh, the quality. Oh, look how beautiful. It's so sick. It's so amazing. It's so... There's a thing called marketing. Google it. You can find a book on the subject, I'm sure. But it's not that difficult to approach some of these people, to gather some of these watches that you already manufacture, put them together in a lump, a web page, something or other, and start promoting them through some of these influencers. Because you already have them at the price point that they should sell. But even more, then you can start introducing why your watch is better than this thing. And that's something I would just say, too, for the getting back to the vloggers out there. Someone not only needs to deal with more evangelism, but needs to explain clearly to someone who's not a watch person why this thing isn't as good as something that's coming out of Seiko or Timex or, pick your brand, Casio, whatever. That sort of clear concept on why you can put them together. I'd love to see. I did this on one of my earlier videos when I just talked about fashion watches as sort of a generic thing. I pulled the back off of one of these things, and you pull the back off of one of these little cheap things, it's pretty horrific looking, quite honestly. I'd love to see someone in your community, because you guys know far more about this than I do. Pull the back off of a Seiko versus the back off of, one of these cheap Chinese marketing brands, and show them. Show what quality looks like. And then teach people how to run the various tests to see how well the quartz movement is behaving. But, try to up the game, because this is the big thing. Evangelists have to take the enthusiasm that's there and build it. I have heard some guys do this really well. I mean, kudos to, Jory Goodman, the time teller. I like to think of as the time Wookiee. You're a hairy dude, but you're good. Great Affordable Watches. I've seen some stuff. There are a lot of great channels. Just one more watch, I would clone you, dude. In fact, the thing I'm wearing right now, it's a Cadison. It's got a Miyota movement and all this sort of stuff. Why? Because he brought this out on his channel, that this thing was available on GearBest for like $60 delivered. And it's got a good movement, and it's got a good crystal, and it's got, this thing puts one of these fashion watches to shame, and it's half the price. But he got people enthusiastic about what's there. That's the key. There are some fellas out there that it's about snobbery. We have the intelligent horology. Dude, no one cares how intelligent your whores are unless you explain it to them. You got it? So this is the challenge that I'm trying to give to you fellas. This is not a hate video, but I'm saying the market has changed. I mean, I have seen markets change. I'm old enough to see this. Once upon a time, there was an operating system called Unix. Actually, there were several operating systems called Unix. That's another issue entirely. But it used to dominate the technical workstation world. And then comes this open source Unix-like operating system called Linux. And I remember I was part of the Linux movement when it came along. And oh, the snobbery. Oh, no, it's not as good as a Unix. No, this is child play. Right now, if you want to see a Unix workstation, you're going to have to find one of the handful of museums that stock them, because most of the rest of them have gone off to the dump. And so anyone who comes along in the watch community and starts looking down their nose at the people buying these things, you're committing suicide. You're killing your own baby. You think that you've got these watches that are going to last for years and years, for generations. No, they'll be in the landfill with the next generation. Because if the next generation doesn't understand the difference between something made like this and something made like this, they'll look at your fine collection of watches and say, why would I want old watches? I can get new ones for $20 a piece. Throw it in the trash. Oh, but you've got a Rolex. Yes. And everyone knows that Rolex is the most copied watch, fake watch on the planet. That most of the ones out there with the Rolex name aren't really Rolex. And so they'll go through your stuff saying, oh, yeah, the old dude had a bunch of fake Rolexes. Toss them. What I'm trying to say is, you need to be approachable. You need to be evangelists. You need to take the enthusiasm that people are getting buying these things as fashion accessories and convert them into believers who want a high quality timepiece and not just a bangle on their wrist. And you do that by being accessible. You do that by educating, not like a professor, but like an evangelist, someone who gets excitement, enthusiasm, builds up the person so that as they're glowing about this purchase, you're not knocking them down. You're saying, oh, well, that's interesting. That's got a nice look to it. That's pretty cool. What is it that you like about this? Now let me show you something I own that's around the same price, but let me explain the difference. And then you can educate them. You can make them excited. So this is my challenge for you today, folks. You've got an opportunity. You've got an opportunity right now. Because right now, honestly, and I've seen this, I'm old enough to know this, you have a market that went from being something that was kind of on the essential but luxury to just plain luxury and unessential. The next step is to step off the pier into the water. That watches as you know it are endangered. And the only way that they're going to survive, the only way that your passion is going to survive another 2 generations is if you make it happen. You have to give people a reason. People who've never touched anything like other than this before. A reason to upgrade to something that's interesting, that has quality, true quality, not what they're selling in these videos, but true quality. And you do that by evangelizing, by being enthusiastic, by bringing knowledge to them in a way that's simple, easy to understand, and that rewards the fact that they're interested at all in having a watch on their wrist. And to challenge them to be able to do something better. So that's my challenge to you folks. Lessons from a guy who's old enough to know better. You can leave hate down below if you want. Honestly, I'm not interested in hate. I'm trying to build you fellas up. Because there's something here. Absolutely. There's history. There's science. There's got all that great stuff. Engineering that goes into a really good watch. And the thing is, it's going to die unless you keep it alive. And that's not the companies. That's you fellas. Because you have the heart and the passion. And that's the only way that a market that is moved now by being a luxury item is going to survive, is if there's passion. And you are the guardians of passion. So my word to you is, step it up. You can do this. My best to you. See you in the next one. Like, subscribe, yada, yada, yada.